And we're excited about our next guest. It's been a while since we've had this lady on this show, but we're excited to have her back. Donna Andrews joins us on the Sportsline. Hi, Donna. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you guys?
We're great. We're great.
Hey, Donna. How's it going? This is Dennis.
It's great. Good to hear your voice, Dennis. It's been a long time.
It has been. Boy, we've been covering Donna Andrews since she played basketball back at EC Glass High School. That's been a few years ago, Donna.
That was just a couple years ago.
And for folks that don't remember, and I think I'm correct when I say this, Donna, you actually played on the boys' basketball team at EC Glass, correct?
No, I played on the girls' basketball team. I played on the boys' golf team.
The golf team, okay.
Yep.
But played on the girls' basketball team. Were you a center?
I was, believe it or not.
I thought so.
Back in my day, I wasn't the tallest center, but they said I was the smartest center. I was very good at shooting free throws, and I had a lot of over the backs because everybody thought they could reach over my back. So Coach Brian always put me in and kept me under. Coach Lindsay taught me how to play very tough defense like a football player because he was one of the football coaches. And I loved it because it was a much more physical sport than golf was.
Donna, let me ask you this. The ability to play multiple sports, it seems like we're getting away from that with our kids in this day and age where everybody's becoming much more specialized in playing one sport year-round. What are your thoughts on that?
I hate it. I think we're ruining our good athletes. I think the better athletes are the ones that play multiple sports, and it's been proven that just by doing the different sports, it helps you whatever sport you do decide to do. So, I mean, I hate it. I always am encouraging my students now that I'm working with, the golfers that I'm working with, I'm encouraging to play other sports in the winter. I know there's the possibility of getting hurt, but we find that they end up with better eye-hand coordination. They end up with better proprioception, knowing where their body is, and they're easier to coach when they've played more than one sport.
Donna, you are the lead instructor at Pine Needles in Southern Pines, North Carolina, and I want to say you are still playing somewhat competitively. Didn't maybe a year or two ago you got back into competition a little bit?
I did. I am now old enough, unfortunately, to be a senior golfer and play on a women's senior tour. And they started a women's U.S. Senior Open 2 years ago. The first one was played in Chicago. Last year was actually played at my home course at Pine Needles. So that was a lot of motivation for me to try to get my game back in shape. And for somebody who teaches a lot and has two kids, I finished tied for 14th. So I was
That's
very
awesome.
pleased with my play. Yep.
A little home course knowledge, I'm sure, didn't hurt. I mean, Pine Needles, what a beautiful place. I mean, and to be the lead instructor for the golf academy and to just live down there. I mean, life's pretty good for you right now, I'm betting.
Life is good for me, and although we've been dealing with COVID, I'm still teaching a lot of golf. Lots of people are spending time at home and need help on their golf games, so they've been keeping me busy. And it's been nice because now I'm doing more probably individual lessons. Typically I am in charge of all the golf schools, and my time is committed to that. But since those have been smaller numbers, I've been able to start doing a lot more private lessons. And it's been fun getting to know my golfers on a more personal basis.
And fortunately, golf is one of the sports, as you said, that hasn't been affected as much as others. I mean, it's good to get out in the fresh air and be able to play, and it's not quite affected by the virus as much as many other things.
No, it's very easy to social distance on the golf course, and we were fortunate to host the Donna tournament there at Boonesboro Country Club back the last weekend of June. We had a very successful second year to our tournament, had a wonderful winner. We had probably, I think it was 63 girls that were there that had scratch handicaps or better to play in the tournament. And so it was a huge success, and we were able to social distance, and everything went well. And we're looking forward to another great year next year for the Donna.
couple things. How cool is it that, that tournament exists and, that you're still so highly thought of, in this area where, people want to do things, in your name and to, for you to be a part of. And, secondly, I'll ask, how much do you love the fact that this is really geared towards more amateur golfers rather than, professionals?
I was ecstatic. Steve Washburn came to me. It was his dream. It's his baby. He came to me. His daughter had come to Sand Hills Community College to play golf after she had gotten hurt in a horse riding accident. So she and I had a lot in common, ended up as good friends. And he said, when she left and didn't go on to, play Division I golf, he said, there needs to be more women's amateur golf tournaments. And I said, I agree. I unfortunately have 2 kids of my own and don't have time to take on a new baby per se. And he did everything. Without him, there would be no Donna Invitational. So he deserves, all the credit for getting it off the ground. Literally, he came to me and said, I want to do a golf tournament and I want to put your name on it. And I said, that's great. How can I help? So kudos to him and his staff. The staff there at Boonsboro Country Club. Aaron Marks came in as the pro there, and he really picked up this year. It being the first tournament back, he was great being able to deal with all the COVID stuff that we had to deal with, the changes that we had to make to the tournament to make it a success. And hopefully next year it'll just be bigger and better, and we won't be dealing with COVID, and we can have an even bigger and better field.
Donna, how old were you when your dad, Barclay, and your mom, Helen, put a golf club in your hands?
I am told just old enough to walk. I don't know. I played in my first golf tournament. I grew up sort of as what I call the country club brat there at Boonsboro Country Club. My mom would drop me off. I'd go to swim team practice in the morning. I'd go play golf. We'd go play tennis. And then we'd end with evening swim team practice. So we were pretty much there all day, every day of the summer. And, there weren't many girls that played golf. Luckily, my best friend, Leanne Russell, played. So she and I would go play tennis, play golf, we'd swim, we'd just hang out at the club all day. And we played in our first tournament. I think I was 9 when I played in my first tournament. I always say she and I went. She finished last, and I finished second to last. So why we kept playing, I'm not sure. But we both went on to play on the high school boys team. And then I went on to play at UNC. I had a full scholarship to the University of North Carolina, which is how I ended up here in North Carolina. I loved it. We used to take trips here to Pinehurst when I was in school. And I thought, oh, what a great place to live and play golf. So I moved here after I graduated from college, and hate to say I've been here 25 years, almost 30 years, I guess, because I left and graduated in 89, so moved here in 1990.
Man, swimming, golf, tennis, more swimming. When did you fit in Fortnite and video games?
I did tell my kids, we used to have an Atari, and they're like, what's that? And I said, occasionally on a rainy day, we would play video games. But if the sun were shining, we were outside, we were doing something. We didn't have Fortnite and all those other things.
But you had Mario Brothers, right?
Oh, yeah. See, I think I was even after my time, Dennis.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm old. What can I say?
Hey, we all are.
Donna Andrews, our guest on the Sportsline. Donna, talk about that for a second, though. I mean, what kids are growing up with nowadays, where there is this huge fascination with screens and phones, and they're not getting out and doing the things that we all did as kids, being outdoors and being active. Are you seeing many kids come through your golf academy, and as many kids being involved and interested in golf as back when you and Dennis and I were all younger?
I don't think so. And, a lot of it is, what I hear from a lot of kids is it's boring. Compared to other sports, golf is boring. So they like the team sports. They like the team atmosphere. And that was what was so great when the PGA Junior League started, because it really turned golf more into a team sport for the juniors. So they went out and played as a team. And I think that's really sort of is starting to help grow that junior base. But if they don't have friends that play, they're not going to stick with it. You know, for ones that like the excitement of basketball, hockey, baseball, I mean, it to them, it's too slow, it's too boring. A lot of them don't have the passion for it. They'd rather go run around a basketball court than go spend the time. Golf is a very time-consuming sport. So, you know, most of my students are the retirees that now have time to play. I get a lot of people in that, 45 to 60 age group that have just retired that are looking for something to help fill their days. So we don't see the growth in the junior game here unless you get, I always say if I have a young girl who plays, I need to have at least two that play because otherwise they won't stick with it, especially the girls. The boys are a little bit more independent. But the girls, if you're going to try to get a young girl to start playing golf, get her friends playing. That's the only way you're going to get them to stick with it.
Donna, when we look at your list of accomplishments, let me just run off a couple. 5 straight state amateur titles in the late 80s from 85 to 89. You won 6 events on the LPGA Tour, including a major, the Dinah Shore in 1994. You're in the North Carolina, Virginia Golf Halls of Fame. When you look at everything that you've accomplished in this sport, is there one that really stands out tall above all the others? What are you most proud of as far as what you've accomplished in golf?
That's a tough question. I guess the thing I remember most, people always ask, what is your fondest memory? There's a couple. Obviously, winning the major tournament and jumping into the lake is something I'll never forget because I was given credit for restarting the tradition of jumping into Poppy's Pond. So that's something that I'll never forget, jumping into that lake and being greeted, by all the people that were in the grandstands there. That will be a memory. Probably one of the coolest memories I have. They invite us back every year. They bring the past champions back, and I was able to take my children back and let them see my name on the wall, see the pond that I jumped in, and we were able to do an Easter sunrise service on the 18th green there. And that will forever stick in my mind as a time that was so special with my 2 kids, being able to do that on Easter Sunday. The other memories from golf, playing on the Solheim Cup teams, like we say, we're all team players, and being able to represent the United States for the Solheim Cup matches, one of them being there at the Greenbrier in West Virginia, will probably be, I remember, my 2 coaches, Joanne Carner and Judy Rankin from my 2 different teams. But my first one was the one at the Greenbrier, and I was paired with Betsy King. And she said to me, I said, well, who's teeing off the odd number holes and who's teeing off the even number holes? And here's a tour veteran, Hall of Famer. And she looked at me and said, oh, well, you're certainly teeing off of 1. And I said, well, why? What's the reasoning? Well, I'd be too nervous. I couldn't tee off the first hole. And that was when I walked to the tee, my knees shaking, going, oh, my goodness, Lord, please just help me get this ball airborne.
That's such a cool story because, the Solheim Cup and, kind of the Ryder Cup, right? I mean, those are the 2 things that, or the 2 competitions, I guess, that are so different from, regular golf in which you guys are playing individually. And, when you're part of a team and playing for your country, you just hear the stories about how players take that. I don't want to say take it more seriously, but feel so much more pressure because it's not just about them. Talk for a second about the opportunity to represent your country and how much different that level of competition was than just playing a regular tour event or even a major.
Well, I think the pressure, we all put our pressure on ourselves during those events, there's no doubt. And because you have a teammate out there, you don't want to let your teammate down when you're out there. So there's much more added pressure. If you let yourself down, it's one thing. If you let your teammate down and let your team down, that's a whole nother ball of wax. And we always had a rule on our teams. You're never allowed to say, I'm sorry. 2 days, you do alternate shot as one of your matches, and then you do basically a better ball as your second. But when you're playing alternate shot and you hit your buddy in the trees, you have to go, okay, well, you're a professional. You should be able to get out of there. And sometimes that's hard to do. Luckily, I was a straight ball hitter, so I never had to say that to any of my partners. But I had a few partners that said that to me, and I'm like, it's okay. I know how to play these shots. So you do put a lot more pressure on yourself. But the celebrations after winning are so cool because it's not just our team. Both teams get together and have a celebratory dinner and dance, and it's always just, an evening of fun after the event is over, because in the end, it's for the good of golf. We're all there to promote golf, and the fact that there's that camaraderie and that you end up being such good friends with some of the people that you played against. I know at one event at Solheim in Muirfield, I was playing against Helen Alfredson, and called a rule. I gave her partner a putt that was on the same line she had. And she said, no, she can putt it. And I'm like, no, she can't. I told her it's good. And she got mad about it because she wanted to see the line of her partner's putt. And the rule said I was able to give it to her because her partner was putting for par and she was putting for birdie, so I didn't want her to see the line. And she got so mad that not only did she miss the putt, then she knocked it in the trees on the next hole. And after the round, she came up and put her arm around me and she said, man, did you really make me mad? But that was such a smart move. And we ended up lifetime friends after that. To watch her win here at Pine Needles was so special, just because of the special bond she and I had shared out on tour. To watch her win the Senior Open here was just, so much fun for her to win at my home course here.
We're talking with golf teaching pro, lead instructor at Pine Needles in Southern Pines, North Carolina, Donna Andrews. Donna, with all the teaching you do these days, do you ever get to go out and play a round of golf?
I very rarely play for fun. I play with my students every now and then. And I did. And last year when I was trying to get ready for the tournament, I played quite a bit of golf. I would go out at lunchtime. I would spend my lunch break out on the golf course trying to get my game in shape and trying to get golf course ready. Since there hasn't been anything to play in this year, I've lost motivation, no doubt. And, I have a 10 and a 14-year-old that keep me busy and hopping, and I wouldn't have it any other way. They come before my golf game nowadays. And until they're off to school, I probably won't find much time to play golf unless they're playing with me.
Donna Andrews, our guest on the Sportsline. All right, Donna, we're going to take Pine Needles out of the equation for just a second because of a little local bias, and it is an absolutely beautiful course, no question about it. But taking that out of the equation for just a second, what's your favorite golf course that you've ever played?
The Nabisco Dinah Shore course out in Palm Springs, California.
Now, is that because you won that tournament? Is that why it's your favorite, or?
I've always said if all my family wasn't on the East Coast, I'd probably move to Palm Springs because there's nowhere else that you could play golf in the desert, not burning up, and see snow on the mountains, and ride a gondola up to the top of the mountains and play in the snow if you want to. It's such a beautiful place out there, and there's so many cool hiking trails and stuff. When I used to go out there and play, I'd go out to the Red Rocks and go hiking, and just thought it was just such a cool venue. But the golf course itself is just a superb layout. It's a great layout for a championship golf course, and it's one that we obviously play year after year after year. I mean, we played certainly some great U.S. Open golf courses, but because you don't get to see it year after year, you don't necessarily get to know the golf course the way we do with courses that we played. I mean, I played that golf course for 15 years, so you get to know it like your hometown golf course. And I love the scenery there. I loved the people there. It's just a great place.
When you jumped in the pond there after winning the Dinah Shore, how cold was that? Was it refreshing, or did you just freeze?
Oh no, it was very refreshing. It was March, but it was warm. I mean, you're in the desert, so the water was warm. The only problem was the quote poop that was on the bottom that my feet touched when I turned around. That was rather yucky. They have now, since that day, they have rededicated the pond to Poppy, who was our tournament director for years and years and years out there. Terry Wilcox just had done a beautiful job with that golf course, and they dedicated the pond to him because of everything he had done for the tournament. But when they redid the pond, they actually cemented the bottom of it. So now it's nice, crystal clear water. It's like jumping into a bathtub now compared to when I jumped into it.
Donna, before we let you go, if folks up here are interested in lessons or the golf school at Pine Needles, where should they go?
The easiest place to go is to my website. Simply go to donnaandrews.net, and that will take them to my website. They can look up individual golf lesson packages. They can look up my boot camps. They can look up golf academies, and they can email me from there. My email is simple. It's donnaandrewsgolf@gmail.com. So it's easy to get me by email, and then I typically respond within 24 hours and get back to you about times and dates that might work.
Well, Donna, it's great to catch up with you again. Good to hear your voice, and best of luck as you continue to teach the rising golfers to stardom there at Pine Needles.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Donna. Appreciate it. We'll stay in touch.